I changed nothing else about my business. My marketing was the same. The procedures were the same. Employees they were trained the same way, and I profited with the same, basically the same amount of clientele, an additional $100,000. It's more like 102,000 and change.
All right. Well, I got Jose, also known as Joe, rolled in here. Joe, thanks for being here. If you could, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. Tell us a bit about you, your background, how many years you've been in the industry.
Thank you for having me. I've been in the industry since 1994. 1995, I opened up my own income tax office, and I've been doing it ever since.
But prior to joining the Service Bureau Accelerator, did you even really know what a service bureau was? Like, you've been in the industry for a while. Did you know what a service bureau was? Have you heard of it before? Like, what was your thought process before, joining? And we'll talk about that whole progression of that later. But like, what was your thought process before joining?
I'd seen the Service Bureau information on the e-file application before, and I always wondered what it was. There wasn't a whole lot of information about it. So I just figured it was something that just did not pertain to me. Well, that kind of like all changed last year when I started answering your ads on Facebook. And I had a couple meetings with you. And after realizing the potential of having a service bureau, I was basically all in.
And then you came from Drake, which I say it publicly, so I don't mind saying it here. People that come from Drake are typically like, it's very cultish, right? It's very hard to convince somebody to leave Drake, especially to do a whole different software, go online. And a lot of times we have conversations with people that are going to start their service bureau, and software doesn't really come up. But with you, like I said earlier, you have a bigger operation, so that became more important. A more important aspect of the conversation. So why don't you tell me in like your words, like, hey, what was your initial thoughts? Like, hey, like, did you have any anxiety trying to leave the software? Like, what was your initial thoughts, and why did you decide to like really just jump ship, for lack of better words?
Yeah. So there was some anxiety for sure. You've been with the same software for so long, and you learn the ins and outs of it. It's just the thought of changing to a different software is just filled with anxiety. But I had the really great meetings with you, Baldeep, and you immediately put me at ease because I could tell that you definitely have a ton of knowledge in the business. And the way you explained things to me made absolute sense. All I had to do was just, go into it and with an open mind, look at the software. I actually asked you for a trial and you sent it to me. And I thought, this isn't that difficult. And it's something that the learning curve isn't as bad as I thought it would be. So my employees were very impressed with the ease of use from the software, and we just used it this past tax season, and I got to tell you, it worked out fine. A lot of great features, a lot of the things that other software companies are nickel and diming me for, like signatures or their portals or what have you. All these things are included with your software, and it was great. We made a very successful transition into the new software, and everything worked out great.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, there's, like you mentioned before, there's a lot of softwares out there, they nickel and dime this and that. We try and do like, hey, you get everything. Like, there's no holding back, right? This is what it is. And I think you're being a little bit too modest, or I don't know if modest is the right word, where I don't think it was as easy for you to let go during the season. Like, you're like, hey, I don't know. It was a struggle, but like I think we were talking earlier, I was like, just like everything, you know, the first couple weeks you're like, I don't know, I'm still used to this other one. But then by the time the season's over, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was easy.
Yeah, I was a bit modest with how I simply just said that I would transition into it and the office transitioned into it. The reality is that it was, I had to fight with some of my employees. It was like tooth and nail. They were so used to Drake, and everyone here in the office had been using Drake since 1995. So, you know, there was a lot of anxiety, maybe not just a bit of anxiety. It was a lot. It was, um, you know, how do I view the program? How do I calculate? How do I e-file? And everybody was really nervous about it. But once tax season started and we just stuck to our guns and started using the new software for specifically bank products,
Right.
it was a no-brainer. We got used to it within a week. And if we had any type of difficult tax return that involved a business, then we would use a different we would use Drake. Basically, we would go back to Drake and use Drake for that. But the software itself was just great. And
Like
we
what
got
I
used to it.
Well, like what I said to you on our when you were signing up, I'm gonna look. It's gonna be hard for you to do a full 100% transition. But all I said, I was like, look, at the bare minimum, if you do your bank products with your service bureau, like your own tax office being a customer of your service bureau, if you do your bank products, you will hands down make more money. And here's how, right? So I guess, you know, with their preparers, you know, they're not thinking that way, right? They're like, oh, I just want to use what I'm used to. But, you know, your motivation is like, hey, the revenue, do you want to share a bit about, you know, like the difference in revenue you've had between the two?
Sure. And, you know, I would also like to say that along with the new tax software, we started using Tax Nitro too. And, you know, so we used Drake and we used to use Atom. The software that we now use is so much simpler to use. It's really user friendly. And same goes for Tax Nitro. I don't know if anybody's ever used the Atom software for CRM, but Tax Nitro, I mean, it's just great too. I mean, absolutely ease of use, and it helped out the business tremendously. But back to your question, and this is the part that, you know, I took a leap of faith, and I honestly felt it in my heart that you were, you know, a straight shooter when you told me I would make more money. And I changed nothing else about my business. My marketing was the same. The procedures were the same. Employees were they were trained the same way, and I profited with basically the same amount of clientele, an additional $100,000. It's more like 102,000 and change. So that was absolutely great. And in hindsight, it was like a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's a huge number, over 100 grand. And, you know, you kind of went a different route. Like you didn't go and sign up a bunch of offices. For you, the motivation was, hey, let me get my office set up first. Now, then after I get used to it, get comfortable to it, now I can go out and make some other sales. And I remember chasing you down over the summer because, you know, you got a bunch of your fees up front, but there's back end money too. And I'm sitting there texting you, trying to call you. I'm like, hey, I have a bunch of money for you. I'm trying to pay you. And it took like 3 weeks to get in touch with you. So yes. Yeah, you obviously made enough on the front end extra to even forget about a significant chunk of change in the summer.
Yeah. Significant in the tune of over $30,000.
That was the summertime back.
that was awesome.
I was texting you. I'm like, Joe, I got 30 grand for over 30 grand for you. What? Like, I'm trying to get in touch with you. I need your bank account info. I was like, I don't want it. I don't want to hold on to it. So yeah, I guess the front end money, extra money that you got was enough for you to forget about that for a bit. But anyway, that's awesome. No, that's great. You know, a lot of people, you know, sometimes they get intimidated with, hey, do I have to go sign up hundreds of offices and do this? And, like, how am I going to do it? Am I going to struggle with it? I think, people that, like you, like with your background, you could have easily gone and done it. Like, I have 100% confidence you could have done it. But I think for you, it was more about, let me get my feet wet. Let me dive in. Let me just make sure I get it working for my business, so I'm confident, so I can get it working for everybody else's.
Yeah, that was important to me. I needed to make sure that it worked for me before I recommended this to anyone else.
Right.
Also, when I got into it last year, I believe it was like late October when I signed up with you. So it was a little later in the year, and
yeah, because you took so long, because we spoke multiple times. So you just dragged your feet, right? So that's realistically what it was, right? But yeah, we got through it.
Yeah, I needed to make sure, and I have no regrets whatsoever. And I would say to anyone that's really on the fence about it, to just do it. You're not going to regret it. As long as you can have the same amount of clientele, you're definitely going to make more money. That's a given. So give it a try.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people overlook that. Like, even just their own business themselves, they make more money on their own business. But yeah. So before we wrap it up, I do have a couple other things I want to touch on. One of the things that separates our program, like for example, like our program, the Service Bureau Accelerator, from everyone else in the industry, besides the software deal, obviously you get software and all that stuff with it, is our training, right? Our actual training. And I don't know how much of it you went through, because you were kind of, like you said, you came in late. But we do a lot of live calls, we do a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you could share a bit, give us a bit of feedback or any of your experience in just participating in any of our trainings.
Yeah, the training was superb. And for anyone that really doesn't have any idea as to how to go about setting things up, or how to market it, how to offer it to other people. You guys are amazing in how you have this portal where you go into each and every one of those questions in detail, and then some. If somebody has a question about how to do something, I can guarantee you it's in there. It's in that portal. Your question will be answered. The Service Bureau Accelerator part of it is also incredibly detailed. And for anyone that's looking for some type of, I would say, passive revenue, where you don't have to be stuck in a tax office doing tax returns day in and day out, that is a really, really great opportunity. And I would say for you to at least look into it.
What are you most excited about going into next year?
Well, last year I started out kind of late. I didn't have a chance to really share this great opportunity with other people. And I do have peers and friends in the business. And I have been mentioning to them about the great opportunity that is to, with your same client base, with your existing database, how you can probably make an additional $100 to $150 per client that does a bank product. As a Service Bureau Accelerator owner, you have amazing bonuses that you can receive for providing this to other people, other business owners, friends and peers. So it's just another piece of the puzzle, and it can be a great opportunity as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, overlook just like, hey, who do you know? Like, you're 27 years in the industry, right? Like, you probably know people from years ago, right? Like, when I started mine, I just started it with friends that I knew that had offices. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's get you set up, right? And knowing that, hey, you as the Service Bureau, you're going to make money on the back end, but you could still provide a good value and a better deal for your actual friends and customers, right? So
absolutely.
Right? So yeah, no, that's cool. And then the final thing, somebody may be watching this video at some point in the future. What would you, any feedback or comments to anyone you would like to give to anyone that's looking at joining the Service Bureau Accelerator program?
I would just say, don't overthink it. It is a great opportunity. Your clients, they're going to be taken care of in the same manner as always. The software is comparable or probably better than the software that you currently use. As a service bureau accelerator owner, you have a great opportunity. I mean, here's a great chance to build something, and residual income would be the benefits of it. So just something to really consider. And again, you owe it to yourself to at least look into it.